everybody. Wave your hands and say hello. Okay, that's good. We're going to talk about the seeing eye. Who has ever heard of the seeing eye? Raise your hand if you've heard of the seeing eye. Okay. At the seeing eye, which is in Morristown, we breed and we raise and we train dogs to become seeing eye dogs to guide and help people who are blind to keep them safe. Right? That's in 25 words, that's who we are and what we do. We breed dogs, we raise them, we train them so they help people who are blind to keep them safe. Now, to start with, people are blind. Everybody knows that. Do you know anybody that's blind? Anybody know anybody that's blind or that can't see too well? Yeah, there's a lot of people around who can't see. Some people are born that way. Imagine being born blind. You've never seen a thing in your entire life. You don't know what red or blue is. You don't know what green grass is. You don't know what your children look like. You don't know anything because you've never been able to see anything. So some people are born blind. Other people lose their vision during their lives. Sometimes they have illness or they have injuries. There's an accident. It could be a soldier in war. It could be an industrial accident of some kind, an explosion that causes people to lose their vision. And, there's a great big discussion that goes on between people that come to the seeing eye about whether it's better to be born blind or whether it's better to lose your vision during your life. And that's one of those arguments that there's no answer for. There's no right answer or wrong answer. But people who have been born blind say, well, I never saw anything, so I don't know the difference. I'm just as happy to be born blind. I can live my life that way. People who have been able to see will say, well, I know what colors are. I know what my family members look like. I know what a green grass looks like. I know what a blue sky looks like. And that's a good thing. So, okay, that's fine. That's happy. Some people like that. So the argument goes on. There's no answer. But what these people have in common is that they aren't able to see and they aren't able to live their lives safely. And there's one other thing that's missing from these people's lives, or that may be missing. And that is their independence. And I'm going to guess for all of you, you don't think about it too often, but the most important quality in your life is your independence. And independence means you can get up and go someplace and do things, and you don't have to depend on somebody else to be there with you to show you where it is or to show you what to do. Right? Does that make sense? Nod your heads if that makes sense. Yeah, people want to be independent. Now, do you suppose a person who's blind can be independent? Yes or no? What do you think? Can a person who's blind be independent? No, I see some people saying no, they can't be independent. Well, you know what? People who are blind want to be as independent as they possibly can. They want to be. We all want to be independent. We don't want to have somebody else lead us and guide us and take care of us every minute of the day. We want to be able to go and do things by ourselves. So our real goal at the Seeing Eye, I said we breed, we raise, we train dogs, but our real goal is to give people who are blind some degree of independence so they can go and do things on their own. So how do we do that? Well, there's a couple of things. Some people who are blind work with what we call a sighted guide. A sighted guide is another person. It might be a husband or a wife or a brother or a sister or a good friend. And I say, like if I said to Mrs. Coleman, would you be my sighted guide? And she would say, well, yeah, because she's such a nice person, she would say, of course I would. But then I say, okay, that means for me to be independent, anytime I want to do anything or go anyplace or be somewhere, you'll take me there, right? And she says, well, I'm not so sure because I have my own family to take care of. I have the Cub Scouts to be with. I have other things in my life. So a sighted guide is a good way for a person to get around if there is someone who will guide them all the time. But usually that's not the case. Well, other people who are blind learn to get around with a cane. And I'm going to show you. I'm going to sit back from the screen, and I've got a white cane. Has anybody ever seen a blind person walking with a cane? Yeah. And what those people are doing is, they have to know their neighborhood. They know the streets and sidewalks. They know where they are. But they tap, 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 tap with this cane so that they can tell if they're on the sidewalk or if they've drifted off onto the grass or if they're about to run over a curb or if they're going to walk into a wall or anything like that. So a cane, for many people, a cane is good. It gets them around. It helps them to keep track of where they are and not walk into walls and not trip over curbs and things like that. But, a cane doesn't have any eyes or ears, or a cane can't make any decisions by itself. So people who are using canes are limited in a certain way. So some people who are blind work with sighted guides. Some people work with canes. But the really cool people who are blind, what do? What do they get to help them? Anybody know? 4 legs? Right? A dog? Yes, people get a dog. And we train dogs at the Seeing Eye to guide people who are blind. Now I'm going to sit back a little bit from the screen so you can see that we have a harness. We have a Seeing Eye harness. This is a leather harness that the dog's head goes through here and his feet goes through here, and it's got a handle that I can hold on to so my dog can lead me as we walk through town or wherever we're going. And the dog learns to take care of me in very special ways that I'll talk about in a few minutes. But the dog will lead me along the sidewalk. The dog will stop when we come to a curb. The dog will help me up and down stairs carefully so that I don't fall up the stairs or down the stairs. The dogs do wonderful things for me. And so some people use Seeing Eye dogs to get around in their day-to-day lives. And they love them. They love the dogs for lots of reasons. Now, what kind of dogs do you suppose we use to be Seeing Eye dogs? We use German Shepherds, we use Golden Retrievers, and we use Labrador Retrievers. And the reason we use these dogs, there's a few reasons. One of the reasons is that they just love people. They've got great dispositions. They're big enough dogs that they can have a harness and they can have a person holding on and following them around. They don't bark a lot. They have good vision, good hearing. They're smart. All dogs are smart. All dogs are smart. They watch and they listen and they pay attention to what goes on and they figure things out in their little doggy brains. But for these dogs, the German Shepherds and Labrador Retrievers and Golden Retrievers, one special thing about them is that they like to please. They like to please, just like all of you, right? You all like to please? Yeah, anybody? You like to make your parents happy? You like to make Mrs. Coleman happy? You like to make your teachers in school happy? And you like it when they say to you, when they say, thank you, you did a good job. I really appreciate what you did. And that makes you feel good, right? And it's the same way with the dogs. The German Shepherds, Golden Retrievers, and Labrador Retrievers like to please, they like to be praised, they like to know what they're supposed to do, and they like you to recognize when they do it. Just like when you do something for mom or dad or a teacher, and they like you to do that, and they say, thank you, thank you, thank you. So the dogs are the same way. So that's why we use those kinds of dogs. They're big enough, they're smart enough, they have great dispositions, they're friendly dogs, they love people, but most of all, they like to please. Well, at the Seeing Eye, we breed our own dogs. And what that means is if one of you came to me and said, oh, I have a really nice dog, and I'd like to give him to you to train to be a Seeing Eye dog, I would say, thank you, I appreciate the offer, but no thank you, because we want to work with dogs that we breed ourselves. And the reason for that is that from practically the day they're born, we want to start training them and leading them in directions so that they'll become a good Seeing Eye dog. Sometimes people get a dog from a shelter, right? Does anybody have a shelter dog? Anybody have a shelter dog? Raise your hand. And with shelter dogs, they can be really wonderful dogs, they can be great dogs, but you don't know what they've been through in the beginning of their lives. You don't know if they had happy lives, you don't know if they were mistreated, you don't know anything about them. We need to know all about our dogs so that we know exactly where they've come from and exactly how they're being trained and prepared to be Seeing Eye dogs. So we breed our dogs in a very special place in Chester, New Jersey. And when the dogs are very young, we start to do something really interesting with them. We have them spend some time in what we call our puppy playroom. In the puppy playroom is where we put 6 or 8 or 10 dogs together, and they learn to play with one another and be comfortable with one another. Some of the floor in the puppy playroom is carpet, some of it's wood, some of it's tile, so they all have different feelings underneath their feet. And when the dogs are in the puppy playroom, we play sounds. We play sounds. Do you suppose we play beautiful music? Do you think so? Yes, no, yeah, no. We play the sounds of the world. We play the sounds of traffic. We play the sounds of crowds of people. We play the sounds of fireworks. We play the sounds of a police car or a fire engine racing by so that the dog can hear all those sounds and get used to them. Because when a dog is out later in his life guiding a person who's blind, he needs to just do his job. He needs to pay attention to where he's going and keeping his blind person safe. And if every time he heard a noise, or if a fire engine went by and that scared him, or if there was a crowd of people and he didn't know what to do, that would take him away from the confidence of doing his job for his blind person. So from the days when the dogs are very little, we expose them to all kinds of sights and sounds and smells and things that they feel under their feet so that they learn that all those things are okay. It's okay to hear these sounds. I don't have to be afraid of them. To be on a carpet, to be on a tile floor, whatever it is, it's okay to do all of that because it's just going to be part of my life. So in this, what we call an imprint period, early in a dog's life, and in fact, in children's lives, when you're really young, you're learning things, you don't even know you're learning them. You think you're just having fun. But dogs are learning these things, and so when they grow up, they've learned them, not to be afraid of a police car or a crowd of people. They don't know where they learned it or when they learned it, but they just know that they don't need to be afraid. And so that's the beginning of training for a dog who's going to become a Seeing Eye dog. That makes sense? Yeah, nod your head. Nod your heads. Yes, a little bit of sense? Okay, good. The dogs spend about their first 8 weeks of their lives in this, what we call our breeding station, and they're learning things, they're hearing these sounds, they're getting held and cuddled by volunteers that are there so that they become very comfortable with life. You know, life is a great place. I hear things, I feel things, I sense things. They feed me. I can sleep when I want to sleep. Not bad. Well, after about 8 weeks, we do something really interesting. We send every dog who's been born in the breeding station, we send every dog out to live with a family. Now, over the course of a year, we breed about 400 dogs. That's a lot of dogs, right? That's a lot of dog food. That's a lot of dog everything. But we breed about 400 dogs. Not all at once, of course, but over 12 months in a year. And each dog goes out then and lives with a family who volunteers to raise seeing eye puppies. And they live with that family for over a year, for 14 or 15 months. And during that time, the puppy raising families love the dog. They take the dogs for a walk. They expose them to more sights and sounds and smells. They take them everywhere they can. Some people take them to work with them. Some teachers take them to school with them. And they just go in all sorts of places for 14 or 15 months while they grow up and while they continue to learn to be good, well-behaved dogs, not barking at everything they see, not chasing every bird that they see, not going after cars, not jumping on people, not jumping up on the furniture. We want them to be good, well-behaved doggy citizens so that when they're out with their eventual blind person, they're well-behaved, they know all the things they should and shouldn't do. So these puppy raisers do a wonderful job of having a puppy 14 or 15 months, loving that puppy, having it become part of their family, but knowing that after the dog grows up, after 14 or 15 months, they're going to have to send the dog back to the seeing eye. Do you think that's a sad day? You better believe it's a sad day, because everybody says, oh, this dog has become like part of my family, and I love this dog, and my children love this dog, and everybody loves our dog, but we're going to have to let him go back to the seeing eye to be trained to become a seeing eye dog. So that's how we get dogs that we're going to train. Now, the next question is, how do we train them? Is there a question? Is Siobhan, do you have a question? Were you just stretching your hand? You have a question to ask?
Yeah, I have a question. Do you buy a seeing eye, and if you buy it, can you like rebuy it? So like, if you give it back and then you want it again.
You mean the dog?
Yeah.
Well, dogs are with people for 7, 8, 9 years. So they keep these dogs for quite a while. Now, it does happen that when a person has had a dog for all this many years, the dogs can't keep up the pace anymore. We retire them. We use that word, we retire a dog. And that means the dog doesn't have to work anymore, and he gets to just live the rest of his life as a retired, happy dog with somebody.
Mr. McAdams?
Yeah.
When I was a younger person, I actually raised one of those dogs. So you said that the dog will go to a family, and we volunteered. Shivam, I think that was your question. We didn't pay for it. We volunteered to feed the dog and take care of it for a number of months. And then we had to give the dog back to the seeing eye. And then they worked with him to do the final training. And we didn't get the chance to buy the dog back because we had sight.
So we bring these dogs back to the seeing eye, and assuming that they're well behaved and they're medically in good shape and all of that, then we start to train them to be seeing eye dogs. Some of the things that we want dogs to do is when you're walking down the sidewalk to stop at a curb. Why? So the person doesn't walk out in front of a car and get run over. And the dog stops to alert the person that there's a curb coming up. And so the dog will stop and the person will say, oh, I guess there's something here. They'll stick their foot out and feel a little bit and say, oh, okay, this is a curb. I'm going to step down the curb. Now, I want to cross the street. Now, one of the commands that the dogs learn is forward. Forward means just what it says. Let's go forward, forward. But if I want to cross the street and I say to my dog, forward, and there's a car coming, that's not a good thing, is it? So we teach the dogs something that we call intelligent disobedience. And I think every one of you knows what intelligent disobedience is, even if you've never heard that name. And what that means is that if I tell a dog to do something and the dog sees that there's a car coming, he's going to say, no, I'm not going to do that. I want to keep you safe. And by the way, I want to keep myself safe too. And so if you say forward and there's a car coming, the dog won't go. He won't obey your command. And you say, okay, he's not doing this. I guess there must be something out there. So you wait a minute and you'll probably hear a car go by, or maybe somebody on a bicycle, or who knows, whatever it is that I can't see, but the dog knew was there. And then when it sounds safe again, and I listen with my ears. As a blind person, I can't see, but I can hear. I listen for traffic. And if I don't hear traffic, I'll say again, forward. And if there's nothing coming, the dog will lead me across the street. When we come to the curb at the other side, he'll slow down so that I can feel that curb and walk up the curb safely, and we go on our way, walking down the sidewalk. Pretty good? It's amazing. The dogs learn to do this. And we teach them to do that by the trainers have a dog, they put a harness on it, and they repetitively, time after time after time, they come to a curb, the trainer stops the dog and praises the dog. Remember, they like to be praised? They praise the dog, good dog, and scratches their ears and does all those things. And then they do that over and over and over again. And finally, after a couple of days, the dog says, oh, I get it. If we come to a curb and I stop, I'm going to get praised and I'm going to get my ears scratched and all the things I like. And the dog says, that's a good thing. And so he learns to do that, and pretty soon, in a day or two, or maybe 3, they walk together, they come to a curb, and what happens? The dog does what? Stops, right? And the trainer continues to praise him, even though the dog has learned this behavior. Another question. Jenny.
How long does it take to train a dog, and what happens, how long do you get to keep a dog for?
Well, we train the dog. We spend 4 months of detailed training to be a seeing eye dog. We learn to stop at curbs. We learn to avoid obstacles. We learn for the dog to help go up and down stairs at a safe pace, ramps, elevators, escalators, all kinds of things that the dog learns. We also take the dog to a mall when they're open. We take them to Newark Airport. We take them to New York City. We take them to stores, in and out of stores, department stores, and all that. So the dogs get exposed to all the things that a blind person is likely to do. And we do that over a period of 4 months. And after 4 months, the dog is ready to be given to a person who's blind. And while we've been training the dog, we've been observing. What are they good at? What are they not good at? For example, when we go to New York City, some dogs think this is really cool. They like the noise and the excitement and everything. Well, if a blind person lives in New York City or commutes to New York City to work, we'll give them a dog that liked being in the city. If the dog didn't like being in the city, we'll give that dog to somebody that is a suburban area or a rural area where they don't have to get involved with traffic and the noise of New York City. So we match people and dogs together based on their characteristics, their size, their health. Like an elderly person who's a little bit slower, maybe doesn't have good balance, will be given a dog that's a smaller, more gentle dog. A younger person, a big, strong person will get a big, strong German Shepherd so that they can go together and walk fast and do lots of things. So we match dogs with people. People who are blind come to the Seeing Eye for almost a month. They live at the Seeing Eye. They go in and out of Morristown, learn to work with their dog, and then after almost a month, we send people home so that they can begin their lives with their dogs. And it's just an amazing process.